Hey guys.
Hey guys.
Hey, it's Mark
This is Michelle.
and the kitties. You don't see them though.
This is Mark and Michelle.
It is. And we're here on, I don't know, Sunday night.
A warm night that's going to turn into a very cold.
Yeah, well, it's supposed to be in the 30s tonight. Tomorrow night, it's supposed to be 17
degrees Fahrenheit.
Yeah, with a high of 39 tomorrow. And possibly some snow, but I ain't believing it.
We don't believe it because this is Oklahoma.
Exactly. So we're not Missourians here. We'd tell the snow to show us, but that isn't going to happen. So, well, we are going to continue on with the mental symptoms that I healed. And we did a part 1. And the first 3 symptoms that we talked about on that live were a strong inability to learn without explicit detail, difficulty following verbal commands or conversation, and the third one, the need for facts. So notice I said need. Well, we're going to talk about 4 through 6 tonight. Number 4 is the need for thorough planning.
Which I guess, hey Tosh.
Tosh!
I guess that would have to do with the need for control too.
Yeah, basically. The need to be aware of everything that goes on so that you don't get surprised type of planning. Which, Krista! My need for planning I could take weeks planning something and finally get up the courage to do it. And I would do it. But sometimes it would take months to do something because I had to plan it all out in my head. I planned for what I thought was every eventuality. Hey, Arlene, how are you? And tonight's episode for you guys, Arlene and Krista, and Taj, is the part 2 of the mental symptoms I recovered from. You guys might find a lot of these things, these symptoms, similarities in your own autistic loved ones. But the need for thorough planning was thorough, but it was pointless because I realized as I got older, no matter how much I planned, there was always some kind of surprise to happen. I was going to say eventuality, but, that could be too. But Michelle didn't know. I don't think you ever really realized that I planned that much.
No, I didn't really understand because I was busy being flippant and spontaneous.
Right. As much as you can.
We did not go together.
No.
Although,
I see what you're saying. Right.
Yeah, I was busy. Ooh, what could I do now?
Right.
That's just like totally a surprise.
Exactly.
Boy, I was hard for Mark.
You were the death of me, obviously not. So, but planning. I remember even telling you once. I can plan for anything that happens. I remember telling you that once.
What did I say?
Early on.
Hi,
hey, Ellen.
What did I say?
And you were like, "Oh, okay," and more than likely it was more like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah, whatever.
I just didn't notice it, And but I do remember telling you that.
I don't remember that.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
You don't need to be sorry. It was so long ago. The cobwebs have totally obscured it by now. But yeah, you probably, and truthfully, what that is a strong need to control. And I don't do that now. I just, if I have to plan ahead for something, it's just basic stuff. For instance, and this is a good example, when I do work on the car, like her car or the Nissan, all I need to do now is get the part and then go, I might need to see how it's put on, right? And so then I'll watch a video on YouTube, see how it's done, and then like the last thing I did recently, a few weeks back, was put in a new headlight bulb. Did that in 20 minutes. I was closing it down when she came out and said, "Do you need something to drink out here?"
Because it used to take him like 3 hours.
Well, it did. And the last time I put in the light bulb in the other headlight, it did take an hour and a half. And that's before I had done any of the heavy metal detox and any of the healing on the medical medium so far. And jobs used to take me for forever. Well, that's why I used to plan, because I thought, well, maybe if I plan, I can be faster at it. That had nothing to do with it. It had everything to do with how my brain didn't process fast enough, pick up the information fast enough, lacked dexterity in my hands and fingers because of the autism.
Right. And I was just thinking, you mentioned this week you watched me fold some clothes, and you said, why can't I fold clothes as fast as you?
Uh-huh.
And I had an idea
Mm-hmm.
to have you fold some things with your eyes shut.
That's an idea.
I haven't done that with you yet. I mean, I do that with the instruments, you know, sometimes to get somebody to feel what they're doing instead of see what they're doing.
Right.
So we're going to try that.
Yeah, that's an idea, because I've always been amazed at NTs. Even when I was autistic, I noticed NTs could do things really quickly. And now I can do things much faster than I ever did, but still probably not as quickly as most NTs, veteran NTs. And because
Should
there's
I get
difference.
like a ribbon or something?
Palme d'Or, yeah. And for suffering through so many years of autism, your loved one. But I was always amazed. Like one of the women I work with, her name is Heather. She can do things so quickly, and I know she's not thinking.
She's
about
a
it.
musician too.
Well, that's true. Good point.
You can't compare yourself to musicians, guys, because they learn to look ahead so much.
Well, Heather was always really quick at stuff. I mean, she just moved right. I'm like, man. Then I've seen people use computers, and they move through whatever they're doing so quickly, I can't even follow along. You know?
That woman was also a musician, though.
What woman?
If you're thinking about the woman who, Julie, was that her name? When we were watching the ClickFunnels stuff.
Oh, no, she was quick, but I've just noticed that most NTs I've encountered in life, if I had to watch them do something, they did it so quickly I couldn't follow along, and I'd have to ask them sometimes to slow down, you know, because it took my autistic brain a long time and numerous times to pick something up. I mean, 7 times for organic chemistry, you know, and I realized the other day that 7 times of 7 semesters of organic chemistry is 3.5 years.
Whoa.
See what I mean? And so I still didn't get it after 3.5 years. So that's how, you know, that's how dysfunctioning your autistic loved one's brain is.
And that's why they want to plan so much.
Exactly, because we don't want to be embarrassed.
Yeah.
And we don't want to fail. So we try to plan hoping that we're not going to be embarrassed and we don't fail. It doesn't work. You know, no matter how much I tried to soak up the information in organic chemistry or calculus or, well, general chemistry. I took that 3 times, general chemistry 1. But my brain just wasn't going to pick that stuff up. And so now that I'm an NT, I don't have trouble picking up information. What I have trouble picking up is emotional processes, you know, like folding clothes without looking at them. Because as you said, what you said the other day, I think it was yesterday actually, or Saturday. That was yesterday.
I don't know what it is.
But what you said to me was, you know, have you ever tried to feel your way through folding clothes? And truthfully, I still don't really get what that means.
You will once we do it with your eyes closed.
Yeah, well, what I think that is you'll know a satisfied feeling. You'll get a satisfied feeling if you've done it.
Yes.
With your eyes closed.
But you'll also know what that feels like.
Okay.
You don't know what it feels like right now.
No, because you know what that requires is being able to have your brain understand where you are in space.
Yeah.
When I was autistic, I did not understand where I was in space.
Yeah.
So the need for thorough planning is definitely a need for control, so that you're not embarrassed, and that. Is he all right back there?
I think he's chewing on things.
Okay, hold on a second. You don't need to be chewing on anything back there, man. Come on.
Kitty drama.
Come on, kitty. Okay. and but anyway, that need for control is very strong, because after so many years of living, being embarrassed, being awkward, people pointing things out, I never liked being put on the spot. So I would sit at the back of the room if I could help it, and never raise my hand. So, all of that, there's a reason for everything your autistic loved one does.
Yes.
There really is. And usually it's hiding. It was for me anyway. Now, I can't say that for everybody, but it definitely was for me. And I have a feeling it's probably the case for a lot of folks who have autism. So let's move on to the next one, hyperfocus. This is one that you guys hear about a lot. Hyperfocus is, for those folks of you who don't know, hyperfocus is being so focused on whatever it is you're doing that you can't be shaken out of it.
Right, and you don't leave to eat.
Right, you don't think about it. Some people might say you're in the flow. That's not what hyperfocus is. For me, and for a lot of other folks who have autism, for me when I had autism, hyperfocus is escape. It is you focusing so intently on something, on one of your special interests, that you use it to de-stress. Now, that's definitely what I used it for, and I've heard other autistic adults say the same thing. They use it as an escape from stress, and which is why you'll find your autistic loved ones want to be alone a lot, because that is the easiest way to get calm. Because even with the loved one, even with her, I could be surprised. I could never predict what would happen between us. Mm-hmm. And because I couldn't, almost everything was brand new and a surprise, even if that interaction had taken place before. Because I couldn't predict what would happen, so therefore everything could be a surprise. And how many of your autistic loved ones like being surprised? I didn't at all. That leads us into the next.
Already?
Well, not already, but okay. That will lead us into the next one. Being surprised, it's not a good thing for people with autism. It isn't, because whether it's loud noises, whether it's a change in plans, emergency change in plan, even an emergency change in plans can cause trouble. But hyperfocus was definitely stress release for me.
And describe some of your hyperfocuses.
Hyperfocuses.
Or hyperfoci.
Hyperfoci, listening to the same piece of music over and over and over. And now,
I think Krista had that experience with Valerie the other night.
Yeah, well, Mariah
Carey.
Yeah, all I want for Christmas is you. And so
let's sing it to Krista. I bet she'd love to hear it again.
Yeah, I bet, right? But hyperfocus, when I say over and over and over again, I don't mean a dozen times. I don't mean 50 times. I mean hundreds of times. The last time I know that I listened to a piece of music like that was probably about 4, maybe 5 years ago. And hey, Patty Jazzer.
Oh, hey, Patty.
And but I listened to a piece of music more than 540 times, sitting right here at this desk with my face in a computer, listening to this one piece of music over
and guess over. Where I was? She was nowhere near here.
Opposite end of the house. She even went to bed, and 4 or 5 hours later, I was still listening to that piece of music. She got up and says, "You have to come to bed and stop doing that." Because I remember that.
I don't. What song was it?
Oh, was that Jordi Savall? And they were in Brittany, and it was a concert that they had done in Brittany, and really great music. Right. But I listened to it over. I listened to it. The iTunes kept count over 530 times. That is hyperfocus, because it was the easiest way for me to de-stress. I'd be alone, and the hyperfocus in a way chases everybody else off.
Yeah.
So that makes it, that makes it easier for you to be alone and de-stress. So that's what hyperfocus was for me. And I've heard it that same way for others as well.
Do you remember if anything triggered that night?
No, I can't remember. That's been a long time ago. And not far into only about a year, I've been having that experience. She can focus on a song for months or years. Yeah, exactly, Kristen.
Say it better for podcasters.
Podcasters, our friend Krista says, I've been having that experience with Valerie for several years. She will focus on a song or several songs for months or years on end. Absolutely. And that's exactly the way I used to do it. Months and months and months. I would focus on a style of music for years, but particular pieces or songs, definitely for months. Mostly before I met her. But if those of you folks who remember Dankeschön from Ferris Bueller's Day Off, back in 2010, I played that over and over again, and it really stressed her out. She left the house and went out with some friends because I had pushed that way past the line.
That was him at his most sick, I would say.
Yeah, that was 2010. Yeah. And so, Chris, I totally get it. So does Michelle, and from both sides, we get it. But I don't do that now. I don't have to hyperfocus at all now. If there's a hyperfocus I have now, it's reading. But even then, I don't read for hours and hours on end. So
you're too social now.
Oh yeah, I look forward to going to work for friends. He
looks forward to coming home for Michelle.
Yeah, well, that's what I was getting ready to say, is because now I really feel like I have to socialize with her. I mean, it's necessary.
You mean like on the inside it feels necessary?
Yes, it's necessary now.
You really want to do this.
Yeah, it's got to take place.
That's so cool.
It wasn't like that before. I had no pushing, no pressing desire to do it. Now I have to talk to her. And she has to talk to me. Sometimes I'm like, look, aren't you listening?
And sometimes I'm tired.
Yes, poor sweetie. Sometimes I'm tired, but I still talk. But that is definitely hyperfocus. Now, surprises, since that is what we talked about here a minute ago, leads us into the next thing. Meltdowns to overstimulation.
You would think that would be overstimulating. Listening to a song 500 times.
You know what it does?
No.
It lets you focus on one thing so that your anxious mind that's constantly focusing on 90 different things.
Right.
It brings you to one thing and keeps you there, and your mind isn't going crazy in 9 different directions.
Just messed up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The obsessive, I imagine, to the audio version of the song and then the karaoke version of the same song where you see that. Yeah. And so then she sings it, right? And you hear it for weeks on end. Yep. I get it. I never sang. I was embarrassed to sing because my parents wanted my sister and I to sing at church quite often, even when we didn't want to. So I don't sing, but which is probably a good thing for Michelle's sanity.
I love hearing you sing.
Yeah. Okay. So, but the meltdowns to overstimulation, here's the thing. Overstimulation, that's why your kids and your loved ones hyperfocus. It's because they've been overstimulated and they have to go find something to bring them down, way down. And that's what hyperfocus is for. And so if you're in the middle of a hyperfocus, or if you're autistic and you're in the middle of a hyperfocus, or you're at home and and you have a good idea that you're not leaving the house, you can relax a lot because you're safe. So when somebody comes along and says, "Hey, we have to go somewhere," that throws a huge monkey wrench into your brain. And so that being the case, all of a sudden you've been surprised with an emergency change in plans and everything goes haywire. And the last time that I can remember that I did this was probably about 2008, 2007 when we lived on Clifton. And you came and said, "Look, we have to go somewhere today." And I was like, "No." And I got mad and melted down and just walked off.
I know I was often really confused by your behavior.
Yeah. Well, that would be why.
I couldn't relate at all. If we had known he was autistic, it would have been easier.
Well, somewhat.
Just to know.
Yeah,
when we
true.
did finally know, it really helped.
Well, it did for both of us. And, so as far as meltdowns go, I think it's safe to say, at least for me, when I was autistic, my behaviors and my thinking, my planning were geared towards avoiding more stress. And so anything I could do to hide from more stress, I was going to do. And so meltdowns occur because you think you've gotten a handle on your stress and you think you're going to be safe for a while. Somebody comes along and says, changing plans. And you're like, no, I'm not doing it. You think you have things settled in a routine for you that makes sense that you can live with. This happened to me a lot at work when I worked for Borders Books back in the late 90s and in the early 2000s. My manager, she said, I don't know what all these little temper tantrums are. Well, I realize now they weren't temper tantrums. They were meltdowns because they had changed something in my department where I was the manager and didn't tell me. And then all of a sudden I found out about it. I'm like, no, don't change it. And I would melt down over it, because they didn't tell me. They never came to me. I came back once from vacation and there was a whole new person in my department running the department. And that pissed me off. They didn't bother telling me. They didn't bother warning me. And this was about 2000, 2001. And I think it was about 2000. Actually, it might have been we came back from Mississippi in 99. I think that's what it was. And so that made me mad. Nobody said anything. They didn't even give me a warning. Hey, there might be a new person in your department. Now, mind you, being autistic at that point, I might not have heard that.
Yeah, you might have been. They might have.
They might
done
have.
something.
And there might have been, and I didn't get squat.
Yeah.
So, to be fair to them. And so, when I was autistic, I tried my best to control my environment. And when something came along to surprise me and upturn all the work I had done to make it routine and make it manageable for me, that's when a meltdown occurred. The overstimulation came from something else something that I couldn't handle. I had already gotten everything settled. It was working. Then somebody comes along and tips it over, and you get meltdown. I guarantee you that's what's happening with your kids and your other loved ones with autism. They're in a routine that works for them. You come along and say, oh, gotta go do something. Nope. That's when a meltdown occurs, because everything is working. Because so often you get surprised. People, when you're autistic, interacting with other people can be surprise after surprise after surprise after surprise, even in the same interaction. Because you cannot read those people well enough to know what direction an interaction might go. And that's a problem.
Yes.
Now I don't have that trouble. If I see somebody coming at me, not a stranger, but one of my coworkers at work, and they don't look like they're very happy, then I'll just say, how's it going? And I'll move on. But if they look like they want to talk, I can tell now because I see them open up. I can see all that stuff now. But when I was autistic, I couldn't. Everything would be a surprise. It didn't matter. Any interaction with her, any day of the week, at any time of the day, could be a surprise.
That's a scary way to live.
Mm-hmm. Because I could never tell really what might happen. And I couldn't predict what might happen. See, as NTs, you do that. But you guys take it for granted because you've never had to sit and analyze that. I've spent years doing that. Now I know why you guys do it. A normal functioning human brain, that's right, I said normal, can come up with theories about how other people are thinking. And the thing is, when you have so many years of practice at it, you're pretty much right as to what other people are thinking when you see them. But when you're autistic, you can't read all of those body cues, facial cues, and everything else that go towards determining how another person is feeling at any one point in time. And I'll tell you how I know is because I remembered all this stuff gradually coming to me over a period of a couple of years, coming on. Now I can see it all. I may miss some stuff. In fact, I think I do. But believe me, it's far less than what I missed when I was autistic. So the meltdowns to overstimulation, the meltdowns come because everything seems safe and quiet and sane. And somebody comes along and says, oh, here you go, surprise. And then it's all haywire again, and you don't know how to manage it. So that's why meltdowns are such a problem, because it's an added extra element of stress. So anyway, did you want to throw anything?
I had nothing.
All right. Well, continue on with that celery juice. Continue on with the heavy metal detox smoothie. Definitely continue on with the lemon water. Go to healyourautism.com/buy the book. That's BUY the book. And get our book, Heal Your Autism's Do-It-Yourself Guide, Healing Begins in Your Kitchen. It's our detox guide. There are a bunch of freebies that come with the book. And also go to www.healyourautism.com, because
you can get this. It's free.
This list is in our first book, which is called Buried Alive, One Man's Journey Out of Autism. Now, for those of you folks who have are having issues trying to figure things out even after you buy the book, or even before you buy the book, maybe you don't want to buy the book. Maybe you want us to help you every step of the way. Then we got something perfect for you. It's called coaching, right? And we can do it one-on-one, or we can do it in a group setting. But you can sign up for that through us, and we can do that once a week, twice a week, 3 times a week, however much you need it. But we have coaching to help you every step of the way. We can handhold you all the way through to the end if you want. All right, guys.
Also, Mark has to work late tomorrow night, so we're going to do our live.
About noon.
About noon?
Yeah.
I think so, tomorrow.
Okay. All right, guys. We'll see you tomorrow.
Okay.
All right, bye-bye.